The rain drummed against my apartment windows in downtown Chicago as I stared at the elegant invitation I'd just finished printing. 28 years old today, and for the first time in years, I felt genuinely excited about my birthday. The ivory cardstock felt expensive between my fingers, embossed with gold lettering that read, Sarah's 28th birthday celebration. I'd booked a table at Alinea, the Michelin-starred restaurant I'd been dreaming about since my promotion at the marketing firm 6 months ago. Finally, I could afford to celebrate the way I'd always imagined. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Can't wait for tonight, honey. Your father and I have something very special planned." A warm feeling spread through my chest as I read her words. After years of feeling overlooked in favor of my younger sister Jessica, it seemed like this birthday might finally be different. Jessica, the golden child who could do no wrong, the one who always seemed to eclipse my achievements without even trying. But tonight was supposed to be about me, and I had carefully planned every detail to ensure it would be perfect. The afternoon, sun broke through the storm clouds, casting golden light across my studio apartment's hardwood floors. I'd worked overtime for months to save up for this dinner, skipping lunches and weekend outings with friends. The financial sacrifice felt worth it when I imagined my family gathered around that pristine white tablecloth, celebrating my life and accomplishments. At 28, I'd finally found my footing in my career, moved into my own place, and felt ready to show my family that I was more than just the other daughter. I pulled my new black dress from the closet, still wrapped in tissue paper from Nordstrom. The silk felt luxurious against my skin as I held it up to the mirror. I'd never owned anything this expensive, but something about turning 28 felt significant, like a threshold into true adulthood. The dress hugged my curves perfectly, and I knew I'd made the right choice despite the credit card debt it would add to my already strained finances. As I started getting ready, applying makeup with unusual care, I couldn't shake the nervous energy buzzing through my veins. This dinner represented more than just a birthday celebration. It was my chance to prove that I'd grown into someone worthy of attention and respect. The woman staring back at me from the bathroom mirror looked confident and successful. Nothing like the insecure girl who used to fade into the background at family gatherings. Tonight, I was determined to be the star of my own story. The restaurant reservation was set for 7 o'clock, and I'd specifically requested a table with a view of the city skyline. Everything had been planned to perfection, from the wine pairings to the dessert course where I imagined my family would toast to my future. I'd even prepared a small speech in my head, thanking them for their support and sharing my hopes for the coming year. The anticipation was almost overwhelming as I applied the final touches of lipstick. My reflection smiled back at me, radiating the kind of confidence I'd spent years trying to cultivate. The girl who used to cry herself to sleep, wondering why she was never enough, had grown into a woman who demanded better. Tonight would be different because I was different. I'd learned to speak up for myself, to take up space, to believe that I deserved good things just as much as anyone else in my family. The Uber notification on my phone indicated my ride would arrive in 5 minutes. I grabbed my purse, a vintage Chanel bag I'd found at a consignment shop, and took one last look around my apartment. The space was modest but tastefully decorated, a reflection of the woman I'd worked so hard to become. Every piece of furniture, every carefully chosen accent, represented my journey toward independence and self-worth. Walking toward the door, I felt a surge of pride at how far I'd come. 3 years ago, I was living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to find my place in the world. Now I had a career I loved, an apartment in a great neighborhood, and the financial means to treat my family to an unforgettable evening. The rain had stopped completely, and the evening air felt crisp and full of possibility. As I locked my apartment door behind me, I whispered a small prayer of gratitude. This birthday would mark the beginning of a new chapter, one where I finally received the recognition and love I'd been craving for so long. The elevator descended toward the lobby, carrying me toward what I believed would be one of the best Nights of my life. Little did I know that the evening ahead would shatter my carefully constructed world in ways I never could have imagined. The Uber pulled up to Alinia's sleek entrance on North Halsted Street, and I felt my heart skip a beat. At the sight of the restaurant's minimalist facade, the building exuded understated elegance, exactly the kind of sophisticated atmosphere I'd envisioned for this milestone celebration. Other diners were arriving in expensive cars, dressed in the kind of understated luxury that spoke of old money and refined taste. I paid the driver and stepped onto the sidewalk, my heels clicking confidently against the concrete as I approached the entrance. Inside, the restaurant was even more breathtaking than the photos I'd studied online. The interior design was a masterpiece of modern minimalism, with clean lines and dramatic lighting that made every surface seem to glow. The hostess, a young woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, greeted me with a professional smile that felt genuinely warm. "Ms. Chen, welcome to Alinea. Your party hasn't arrived yet, but we'd be happy to seat you at the bar while you wait." The sound of my name spoken with such respect sent a thrill through me. I chose to wait at our table instead, wanting to savor every moment of this experience I'd worked so hard to afford. The table was positioned perfectly, offering a stunning view of Chicago's glittering skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lights twinkled like stars against the darkening sky, and I couldn't help but feel like I was exactly where I belonged. This was the life I'd been building toward, the woman I'd fought to become despite years of feeling invisible in my own family. My phone buzzed with messages from various family members confirming their arrival times. Dad would be coming straight from his law office downtown, still wearing his court attire, but promising to be there by 7:15. Mom had spent the afternoon at the salon, getting her hair done specially for the occasion, which touched me more than I cared to admit. Even my normally absent older brother Marcus had confirmed he'd be flying in from Boston, though his flight was delayed, and he'd arrive fashionably late as always. The one person whose response felt lukewarm was Jessica, my 24-year-old sister who seemed perpetually annoyed by any attention directed away from herself. Her text simply read, "See you there," without any of the enthusiasm or warmth I'd hoped for. I tried not to let her indifference dampen my spirits, reminding myself that this night was about celebrating my own achievements, not seeking approval from someone who'd never offered it freely anyway. A sommelier approached with the wine list, and I selected a bottle of champagne to start the evening. The bubbles danced in my glass as I took the first sip, the crisp taste marking the official beginning of my 28th birthday celebration. Around me, other diners were engaged in intimate conversations, their voices creating a gentle hum that added to the restaurant's sophisticated ambiance. I felt proud to be part of this world, to have earned my place among people who appreciated fine dining and life's finer pleasures. The first course arrived as a small work of art on my plate, though I was still waiting for my family to join me. The chef had created something that looked more like a sculpture than food, delicate and beautiful in ways that made me hesitate to disturb it with my fork. I decided to wait, wanting to share this moment with the people who mattered most to me. The anticipation was building, and I could practically feel the warmth of their congratulations and admiration washing over me. My reflection in the window showed a woman who looked every bit as sophisticated as her surroundings: the expensive dress, the carefully applied makeup, the confident posture. Everything about my appearance spoke of success and self-assurance. I'd come so far from the girl who used to shrink into herself at family gatherings, afraid to speak up or draw attention. Tonight, I was ready to claim my place as an equal member of this family, deserving of respect and celebration. The maitre d' approached my table with a warm smile, asking if I'd like to order an appetizer while waiting for my party. I politely declined, explaining that I wanted the full experience to begin when everyone arrived. He nodded approvingly, commenting on what a lovely celebration this would be. His words reinforced my belief that this evening would be everything: I dreamed of and more. As the minutes ticked by, I found myself mentally rehearsing conversations I hoped to have with each family member. With Dad, I wanted to discuss my recent promotion and the new responsibilities I'd taken on at work. With Mom, I hoped to share my plans for redecorating my apartment, and maybe even hint at my growing desire to find someone special to share my life with. These were the kinds of adult conversations I'd been longing to have, discussions that would cement my status as a successful, independent woman worthy of their pride and respect. At 7:20, I spotted my parents walking through the restaurant's entrance, and my heart swelled with genuine happiness. Dad looked distinguished in his charcoal gray suit, his silver hair perfectly styled despite his long day in court. Mom appeared radiant in a deep blue dress that complemented her eyes, her recent salon visit evident in the way her auburn hair caught the restaurant's ambient lighting. They both paused to take in the restaurant's elegant atmosphere, and I could see the impressed expressions on their faces as they absorbed the upscale environment I'd chosen for this celebration. "Sarah, darling." Mom's voice carried across the dining room as she spotted me, her face lighting up with what appeared to be genuine excitement. She hurried over in her new heels, arms outstretched for an embrace that felt warmer than usual. "You look absolutely stunning in that dress. This place is incredible. How did you ever manage to get a reservation here?" Her praise felt like sunshine after years of cloudy weather, and I basked in the attention as she settled into the chair beside me. Dad's greeting was more reserved but equally warm, his weathered hand squeezing my shoulder as he took his seat, across from me. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. 28 years old. I can hardly believe how grown up you've become." His pride was evident in his voice, and I felt tears threatening to blur my carefully applied mascara. These were the moments I'd been craving, the validation that I'd finally become someone worthy of their admiration and respect. The sommelier returned to pour champagne for my parents, and Dad raised his glass in an impromptu toast. "To our daughter, Sarah, who continues to amaze us with her strength, intelligence, and grace." The words were exactly what I'd longed to hear, and I felt a warmth spreading through my chest that had nothing to do with the alcohol. Mom nodded enthusiastically, adding, "We're so proud of the woman you've become, honey. This dinner is a perfect reflection of your sophisticated taste." As we settled into comfortable conversation, I found myself marveling at how different this felt from previous family gatherings. For once, I wasn't competing for attention or struggling to be heard over Jessica's dramatic stories or accomplishments. The conversation flowed naturally between topics that actually interested me: my work, my apartment, my plans for the future. Dad even asked for my opinion on a case he was working on, treating me like the intelligent adult I'd worked so hard to become. Mom seemed genuinely interested in the details of my promotion, asking thoughtful questions about my new responsibilities and the challenges I was facing in my expanded role. She listened intently as I described the marketing campaign I'd spearheaded, nodding appreciatively at the creative strategies I'd developed. "You always were the creative one in the family," she said, and for the first time in years, that observation felt like a compliment rather than a consolation prize. The appetizers arrived as we were deep in discussion about my career trajectory, and I felt a surge of pride as my parents marveled at the artistic presentation. "You certainly know how to pick a restaurant," Dad commented, carefully tasting the delicate creation on his plate. The food was as exceptional as I'd hoped, and I could see that my parents were impressed not just with the cuisine, but with my ability to orchestrate such a sophisticated evening. Our conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Jessica, who swept into the restaurant 20 minutes late as if making a grand entrance. Even from across the room, I could see she'd dressed to impress in a stunning red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her long dark hair was styled in perfect waves, and she carried herself with the effortless confidence that had always come naturally to her. The hostess personally escorted her to our table, clearly charmed by my sister's magnetic presence. "Sorry I'm late," Jessica announced breathlessly. though she didn't sound particularly apologetic. Traffic was absolutely insane, and then I couldn't find parking anywhere near here. She kissed Mom and Dad on both cheeks in a gesture that seemed practiced and performative, then turned to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Happy birthday, sis. This place is impressive." The pause before impressive carried just enough hesitation to plant a seed of doubt in my mind. As Jessica settled into her chair and immediately commanded the conversation with stories about her latest photography project, I felt the familiar sensation of becoming invisible. Within minutes, Mom and Dad were hanging on her every word, asking detailed questions about her artistic process and upcoming gallery showing. The warm attention that had been focused on me just moments before seemed to evaporate like morning mist, leaving me to smile politely and pretend that this sudden shift didn't cut deep into my heart. Jessica launched into an animated description of her latest photography exhibition, her hands gesturing gracefully as she spoke about light composition and artistic vision. "The gallery owner says it's some of the most emotionally evocative work he's seen from an emerging artist," she explained, her voice carrying the kind of confidence that came from a lifetime of praise and validation. Mom and Dad leaned forward, completely captivated by her story, their faces glowing with the familiar pride that Jessica had always been able to inspire effortlessly. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Mom gushed, reaching across the table to squeeze Jessica's hand. "Your father, and I always knew you had extraordinary talent. Remember when you were just 12 and won that state photography contest? Even then, we could see you were destined for great things." The warmth in Mom's voice when she spoke about Jessica was unmistakable, a tone I'd rarely heard directed toward me despite my own achievements and milestones. Dad nodded enthusiastically, pulling out his phone to show the waiter a photo of Jessica's work that he kept saved in his favorites. "Our daughter is going to be famous someday," he announced proudly to the server, who politely admired the image on the screen. I sat there, watching this interaction, feeling increasingly like a spectator at my own birthday celebration. The champagne that had tasted so celebratory just minutes before now felt flat and bitter on my tongue. The conversation continued to revolve around Jessica's artistic pursuits, her upcoming gallery opening, and the influential people she'd been meeting in Chicago's art scene. She name-dropped several local celebrities and gallery owners with casual ease, painting a picture of a life filled with excitement and recognition. "Marcus told me he might even fly back from Boston for the opening," she mentioned, and I felt a pang of hurt realizing that our older brother was more likely to attend her gallery showing than he'd been to make it to my birthday dinner. I attempted to steer the conversation back to the celebration at hand by mentioning the special tasting menu I'd selected for the evening. "The chef personally designed this meal to showcase seasonal ingredients from local farms," I explained, hoping to recapture some of the attention that had been so freely given just minutes before. But Jessica smoothly transitioned my comment into another story about a famous chef she'd recently photographed, effectively hijacking even my attempt to discuss my own carefully planned celebration. Mom's phone buzzed with notifications, and she excitedly showed Dad the social media posts from Jessica's recent gallery reception. "Look at all these people commenting on her work," she said, scrolling through dozens of congratulatory messages and heart emojis. The pride radiating from both my parents was so intense it was almost palpable, filling the space around our table. With an energy that seemed to exclude me entirely, I forced myself to smile and nod along, playing the role of the supportive older sister while dying a little inside. The main course arrived, each plate a masterpiece of culinary artistry that represented hours of preparation and creativity. Under normal circumstances, I would have been thrilled to experience such exceptional cuisine. But the food felt like cardboard in my mouth as I watched my family fawn over Jessica's every word. The expensive meal I'd saved for months to afford had become mere background to another Jessica appreciation session, no different from countless family dinners where I'd faded into the wallpaper. "You know what we should do?" Jessica suddenly announced, her eyes lighting up with inspiration. We should have the waiter take some photos of us with this gorgeous food. The lighting in here is absolutely perfect for Instagram, and this would make such a beautiful birthday post for Sarah. Her suggestion sounded thoughtful on the surface, but I knew it was really about capturing the elegant atmosphere for her own social media content. As Jessica directed an impromptu photo session, positioning herself strategically in the best lighting while relegating me to the background, I felt the last remnants of my birthday joy slipping away. She critiqued angles and suggested poses with the authority of a professional photographer, turning what should have been intimate family moments into a carefully orchestrated photo opportunity. Mom and Dad played along enthusiastically, clearly delighted to be part of Jessica's creative vision. The irony wasn't lost on me that at my own birthday dinner, I was being directed and positioned by my younger sister like a prop in her artistic composition. As the camera clicked and Jessica's voice filled with satisfaction at the perfect shots she was capturing, I realized that once again, I was experiencing my own life through Jessica's lens, rather than being the star of my own story. The beautiful restaurant, the carefully planned evening, the expensive dress. None of it seemed to matter when Jessica was in the room, effortlessly drawing all light toward herself like a gravitational force. As dessert was being served, Mom reached into her elegant leather handbag with an expression of barely contained excitement. "I think it's time for presents," she announced, her voice carrying the kind of anticipation usually reserved for Christmas morning. My heart began to race with genuine excitement for the first time since Jessica's arrival, hoping that the gift exchange might finally shift the focus back to me and the significance of this milestone birthday celebration. The first package was small and wrapped in expensive silver paper with a silk ribbon that caught the restaurant's dim lighting beautifully. "This is from your father and me," Mom said, sliding the gift across the pristine white tablecloth toward me. My hands trembled slightly as I carefully untied the ribbon, wanting to savor this moment of being the center of attention. The wrapping paper fell away to reveal a jewelry box from Tiffany & Co., and I gasped audibly at the sight of the iconic blue box. Inside, nestled in cream-colored velvet, was the most beautiful necklace I'd ever seen. A delicate white gold chain, with a pendant featuring my birthstone surrounded by tiny diamonds. The piece was elegant and sophisticated, exactly the kind of jewelry I'd admired in store windows, but never dreamed I could own. "It's absolutely gorgeous," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion as I lifted the necklace from its cushioned home. The pendant caught the light and sparkled like captured starlight. "We thought it was time you had something truly special," Dad said warmly, his eyes crinkling at the corners with genuine affection. "You've worked so hard this year, and we wanted to give you something that reflects the successful woman you've become." His words were exactly what I'd been longing to hear, validation of my growth and achievements wrapped up in the most beautiful gift I'd ever received. Mom nodded approvingly, adding, "Every time you wear it, I want you to remember how proud we are of you." I fastened the necklace around my neck with shaking fingers, the weight of it against my skin feeling like a tangible symbol of my parents' love and recognition. Jessica complimented the piece politely, though I detected a hint of something, envy perhaps, in her voice that gave me a small thrill of satisfaction. For once, I was the recipient of the kind of thoughtful, expensive gift that usually went to the golden child of the family. The second gift was larger and came with an envelope containing a handwritten card. "This one is a little different," Mom said, her smile mysterious as she watched me examine the package. The card was written in Mom's elegant script, expressing love and birthday wishes that brought tears to my eyes. But it was the gift itself that truly took my breath away. A professional camera bag containing a top-of-the-line Canon camera with multiple lenses and accessories. My initial excitement faltered as I stared at the expensive camera equipment, confusion clouding my thoughts. I'd never expressed particular interest in photography beyond the occasional Instagram post, and the gift seemed oddly specific for someone with my interests and hobbies. "Mom, this is incredibly generous," But I'm not sure I understand, I said, carefully, trying to mask my bewilderment with gratitude. The camera was undoubtedly expensive and high quality, but it felt like a gift chosen for someone else entirely. Well, we thought it was time you explored your creative side, Mom explained, though her explanation felt rehearsed and unconvincing. Dad nodded along, but I could see uncertainty in his eyes that suggested this hadn't been his idea. Photography is such a wonderful hobby, and we thought you might enjoy documenting your travels and experiences. The words sounded hollow, lacking the personal touch that had made the necklace feel so meaningful and appropriate. Jessica's eyes had lit up the moment the camera appeared, and she leaned forward to examine the equipment with obvious expertise and desire. "Oh, wow, this is the exact model I've been saving up for," she said, her voice filled with longing as she handled one of the lenses with reverence. The image quality is supposed to be absolutely incredible, and the low-light performance is revolutionary for this price point. Her technical knowledge was impressive and made it clear that she understood and appreciated this gift far better than I ever could. As I sat there holding a camera I didn't want or need, watching Jessica's eyes shine with genuine desire for the equipment in my hands, I began to feel a familiar sinking sensation in my stomach. The beautiful necklace around my neck suddenly felt heavy with dread rather than pride, as if I could sense that something was about to go terribly wrong with this perfect evening I'd planned so carefully. The stage was being set for a moment that would change everything, though I couldn't yet see the devastating blow that was coming. Mom cleared her throat softly, the sound cutting through the ambient restaurant noise like a blade. Her expression had shifted from excitement to something more complex, a mixture of determination and what looked suspiciously like guilt. "Actually, Sarah, I need to talk to you about something," she began, her voice taking on the careful tone she used when delivering difficult news. My heart began to pound as I sensed the shift in atmosphere, the way both my parents suddenly couldn't quite meet my eyes directly. "You know how much Jessica has been struggling financially since she started pursuing her art full-time," Mom continued, her words measured and deliberate. I felt my stomach drop as I began to understand where this conversation was headed, but I couldn't quite believe what was happening. She's been working part-time jobs just to pay rent, and she really needs professional equipment to take her career to the next level. This camera could make all the difference for her future. Jessica remained silent, but I could see the anticipation in her posture, the way she was holding herself perfectly still as if afraid to breathe and break whatever spell Mom was weaving. Dad looked uncomfortable, shifting in his chair and avoiding eye contact with everyone at the table. The elegant restaurant suddenly felt suffocating, its refined atmosphere mocking the ugly family drama that was unfolding over my birthday dinner. "What I'm trying to say is," Mom continued, reaching across the table to gently take the camera from my hands, "I think Jessica deserves this more than you do right now. She'll actually use it to build her career, and you already have everything. You need to be successful." The words hit me like physical blows, each syllable chipping away at the confidence and joy I'd felt just moments before. My own mother was taking back my birthday gift and giving it to my sister, right here in front of everyone. The camera bag slid across the table toward Jessica with a soft whisper against the tablecloth, and I watched in stunned silence as my sister's face transformed with joy and gratitude. "Oh my God, Mom, are you serious? This is exactly what I need for the gallery opening next month," Jessica gushed, her hands already exploring the camera's features with practiced familiarity. The irony was devastating. She was more excited about my birthday gift than I had been, because she actually understood its value and purpose. "Thank you so much," Jessica continued, directing her gratitude toward our parents while completely ignoring my presence. "This is going to change everything for my career. I'll finally be able to capture the quality images I've been envisioning, and the gallery owner will be so impressed." She was already planning how to use the equipment, her words tumbling out in excited streams while I sat frozen in shock and humiliation. Mom's justification continued as if she were explaining a reasonable business decision rather than devastating her older daughter on her birthday. Sarah, you have a stable job and a beautiful apartment. You don't really need anything right now, and Jessica is at such a crucial point in her artistic development. This camera will help her achieve her dreams. And isn't that what family is supposed to do? Support each other's dreams? The logic was twisted but delivered with such conviction that I almost began to doubt my own right to feel hurt and angry. Almost. Dad finally spoke up, his voice weak and apologetic. Maybe we could get Sarah something else, something more suited to her interests. But his suggestion felt like an afterthought, a consolation prize offered to the child who'd just watched her sibling get the bigger piece of cake. I looked down at the beautiful necklace still hanging around my neck, its weight now feeling more like a chain than a gift. Even this remaining present felt tainted by what had just happened, as if it were merely a token thrown my way to ease their guilt about giving away what was supposed to be mine. The diamonds that had sparkled so brilliantly just minutes before now seemed dim and cold against my skin. The restaurant continued to buzz with conversation and laughter from other tables, but our corner had fallen into an awkward silence, punctuated only by Jessica's continued examination of her new camera. I realized that everyone was waiting for me to respond, to graciously accept this robbery disguised as family support, to smile and pretend that having my birthday gift redistributed was perfectly acceptable behavior from the people who were supposed to love me most. The silence stretched between us like a chasm, filled only by the soft clicks of Jessica experimenting with her new camera settings. I could feel my parents' expectant gazes, waiting for me to offer some gracious response that would absolve them of the cruelty they'd just inflicted. The beautiful restaurant around us continued its elegant dance of service and sophisticated conversation, completely oblivious to the devastation occurring at our table. My throat felt tight, as if someone had wrapped invisible hands around my neck and begun to squeeze slowly. So, I finally managed to whisper, my voice barely audible. Above the ambient noise, "You gave away my birthday gift because Jessica deserves it more than I do." The words tasted bitter in my mouth, each syllable carrying the weight of 28 years of being the afterthought, the consolation prize, the daughter who was never quite enough. Mom's face flushed slightly, but she maintained her defensive posture, clearly prepared to justify her decision with more rationalization. "It's not about deserving, sweetheart," Mom said, her tone taking on the patronizing quality she used when she thought I was being unreasonable. "It's about practicality and making sure our resources go where they can do the most good. You're already successful and stable, while Jessica is still trying to establish herself. As the older sister, I would think you'd want to support her dreams." The manipulation in her words was crystal clear, attempting to frame my hurt as selfishness and Jessica's gain as some noble family sacrifice. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair, finally finding his voice to add, "Maybe we didn't handle this the right way, but your mother has a point about Jessica needing the equipment more urgently." His weak attempt at diplomacy only made things worse, confirming that this hadn't been a spontaneous decision but something they'd planned together. They had sat in their living room, discussing how to take away my birthday gift and give it to their favorite daughter, and they'd decided it was not only acceptable, but righteous. Jessica, emboldened by our parents' support, finally looked up from her new camera to address me directly. "Sarah, you have to understand that this is about my future, my career. You already have everything figured out, the job, the apartment, the financial security. I'm still struggling to make it as an artist, and this equipment could be the difference between success and failure." Her words were delivered with the kind of earnest sincerity that made them even more insulting, as if my feelings were trivial compared to her artistic ambitions. The rage that had been building inside me finally reached its breaking point, and I felt something fundamental shift in my chest, like a dam finally giving way to floodwaters. "This is unbelievable," I said, my voice growing stronger and clearer with each word. You invited me to my own birthday dinner just so you could humiliate me in public. You wrapped up a gift, pretended it was for me, and then took it away because the golden child wanted it more. That's not fair, Sarah, Mom protested, but her voice lacked conviction. We're trying to do what's best for the family as a whole. Jessica's career is at a critical juncture, and I cut her off with a sharp gesture, no longer willing to listen to elaborate justifications for what was simple, cruel favoritism dressed up as family strategy. No, I said firmly, standing up from my chair with such force that my water glass wobbled dangerously. What's not fair is that I spent months saving money to treat you all to this expensive dinner, hoping for once to feel like I mattered in this family. What's not fair is that you planned this betrayal in advance, knowing it was my birthday, knowing how much it would hurt me. My voice was rising slightly, drawing subtle glances from nearby tables, but I no longer cared about maintaining the sophisticated image I'd worked so hard to project. The necklace around my throat felt like it was choking me, a beautiful noose that represented the conditional love my parents offered. Gorgeous and valuable as long as I stayed quiet and grateful for whatever scraps of attention they threw my way. You know what the most pathetic part is? I continued, my voice shaking with emotion. I actually thought tonight would be different. I thought maybe, finally, I would matter as much as Jessica does. I thought maybe I had earned the right to be celebrated instead of overshadowed. Jessica's face had gone pale, and she was clutching the camera protectively against her chest as if I might try to reclaim it. Dad was staring at his plate, unable to meet my eyes, while Mom's expression cycled between guilt, anger, and stubborn defensiveness. The elegant birthday dinner I'd planned so carefully had become a crime scene, with my dignity and self-worth lying scattered across the pristine tablecloth like broken glass. The moment felt suspended in time, pregnant with the possibility of words that could never be taken back, actions that would reshape our family dynamic forever. The truth of my situation crystallized with painful clarity as I stood there, trembling, with rage and heartbreak. You know what I realized? I said, my voice steadying as the full scope of their betrayal became clear. This whole dinner was a setup. You didn't come here to celebrate me. You came here to give Jessica a gift while making me pay for the privilege of watching it happen. The expensive meal I'd saved for months to afford suddenly felt like the ultimate insult, as if I'd been forced to fund my own humiliation. Mom's face crumpled slightly, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of genuine remorse cross her features. But it was quickly replaced by stubborn defensiveness as she scrambled to maintain her position. Sarah, you're being dramatic. We love you just as much as Jessica, but the words died in her throat as she realized how hollow they sounded in the face of what they'd just done. How could she claim to love me equally while systematically demonstrating the opposite through every action and decision? No, you don't, I stated flatly, the simple truth falling between us like a stone into still water. You've never loved me the way you love her. Jessica gets the praise, the attention, the support, the understanding, and now she get my birthday. Gifts, too. I get lectures about being practical and responsible while she gets enabled and celebrated for every whim and artistic vision. The words were flowing out of me now, 28 years of suppressed hurt and observation pouring forth in an unstoppable torrent. Jessica finally spoke up, her voice small and defensive. I never asked for them to take your gift away. I was just excited about the camera when I saw it. But her protest rang hollow. She'd accepted the equipment eagerly enough, with no thought for my feelings or the inappropriateness of the situation. She'd been so focused on getting what she wanted that she'd participated in my humiliation without a second thought, just as she'd done countless times before. You didn't have to ask, I replied, looking directly at my sister for the first time since this nightmare began. You never have to ask because everything just flows to you naturally. The praise, the money, the support, the gifts. It all comes to you like water flowing downhill. And I'm expected to stand there and smile and be grateful for whatever's left, over after you've taken what you want. Dad finally found his voice, though it came out weak and shaky. "Sarah, I think you're overreacting. It's just a camera. We can get you something else, something you'll actually use." His words revealed how little he understood about what was really happening here. This wasn't about a camera. It was about a lifetime of being treated as secondary, of having my feelings dismissed as overreactions, of being expected to graciously accept whatever treatment they decided to dish out. "It's not about the camera, Dad," I said, my voice taking on the patient tone of someone explaining something to a child. "It's about the fact that you thought it was acceptable to take away your daughter's birthday gift and give it to someone else because she deserved it more. It's about the fact that you planned this humiliation in advance and thought I would just smile and accept it like I always do." The restaurant felt like it was closing in around us, the elegant atmosphere now suffocating rather than sophisticated. Other diners were beginning to notice the tension at our table, their conversations quieting as they sensed the drama unfolding nearby. I realized I was making a scene in the very place I'd chosen to showcase my success and sophistication, but I no longer cared about maintaining appearances. The mask I'd worn for so many years was finally slipping away, revealing the hurt and anger I'd been carrying for decades. "Look around you," I continued, gesturing to the opulent restaurant with its crystal chandeliers and white-gloved servers. "I saved for months to bring you all here, to show you that I've become someone successful and worthy of respect." "And what did you do?" "You used my own celebration as an opportunity to make me feel small and insignificant again. You turned my birthday dinner into Jessica's gift-giving ceremony." Mom's eyes filled with tears, but I could see she was still struggling to understand why I was so upset. "We just wanted to help Jessica with her career," she said weakly. "You know how hard it is for artists to get established. We thought you'd understand, being the responsible one." The words "responsible one" felt like a curse rather than a compliment, a label that had trapped me in a role where I was expected to sacrifice my own needs for everyone else's benefit. "Being responsible doesn't mean being invisible," I said, my voice cracking with emotion. "Being stable doesn't mean I don't deserve to be celebrated. Being successful doesn't mean I don't need love and validation from my own family." The tears I'd been holding back finally began to fall, streaking my carefully applied makeup and making me feel exposed and vulnerable in this public space I'd chosen to showcase my achievements. The weight of 28 years of accumulated hurt and disappointment pressed down on me like a physical force, making it hard to breathe in the restaurant's suddenly oppressive atmosphere. I could see the shock on my family's faces as they realized the depth of my pain, but their surprise only made everything worse. How could they be surprised? How could they not have seen what their constant favoritism had done to me over the years? Their obliviousness to my suffering felt almost as cruel as the favoritism itself. "You want to know what the worst part is?" I asked, my voice steadying as I reached for the necklace clasp at the back of my neck. "The worst part is that you actually thought I would be grateful. You thought I would smile and thank you for giving away my birthday gift because that's what good daughters do. They sacrifice their own happiness for their family." My fingers found the clasp, and I carefully removed the beautiful necklace that had briefly made me feel valued and loved. I placed the Tiffany necklace gently on the white tablecloth between us, the diamonds catching the candlelight one last time before I pushed it toward my parents. "I don't want this anymore," I said quietly. "I don't want jewelry that comes with conditions. I don't want gifts that are given to make you feel better about treating me like garbage. And I definitely don't want reminders of this night hanging around my neck." The symbolic gesture felt liberating and devastating at the same time. "Sarah, please don't do this," Dad said, his voice finally carrying some genuine emotion. "Keep the necklace. It was chosen specifically for you, and we meant every word about being proud of you." But his protests felt too little, too late. The damage had been done, and Pretty Jewelry couldn't repair the wounds they'd inflicted with their thoughtless cruelty and blatant favoritism. Jessica looked stricken, clutching her new camera like a life preserver while watching our family implode around the dinner table. "Maybe I should give the camera back," she offered weakly, but we all knew she didn't mean it. She would never voluntarily give up something she wanted, especially not for my sake. The offer was just empty words designed to make her feel better about participating in my humiliation. "Don't bother," I replied, standing up and gathering my purse. "It's too late for gestures. The damage is done, and now we all know exactly where we stand in this family. Jessica gets the gifts, the support, and the unconditional love. I get lectures about responsibility and the privilege of watching it all happen." My voice was steady, now resigned rather than angry, as if I'd finally accepted a truth I'd been fighting against for years. The expensive meal sat mostly untouched on our plates. Hundreds of dollars worth of artfully prepared food that would go to waste because of the family drama that had erupted over dessert. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd spent my savings on a celebration that had become a funeral for my relationship with my family. The sophisticated atmosphere I'd chosen to showcase my success had become the backdrop for my final humiliation, where, "Are you going?" Mom asked desperately as I pushed my chair back from the table. "We can't just leave things like this. We need to talk about this as a family." But the time for family discussions had passed. They'd made their priorities clear through their actions, and no amount of talking would change the fundamental dynamic that had shaped my entire life. "I'm going home," I said simply, slinging my purse over my shoulder. "To my apartment that I pay for with my own money, in my neighborhood that I chose because it makes me happy. I'm going to my life that I built without any help from people who think my feelings don't matter." The words felt empowering, a declaration of independence from a family that had never truly seen or valued me. As I walked away from the table, I could hear Jessica whispering urgently to our parents, probably trying to figure out how to smooth things over and get back to celebrating her new camera. The restaurant's elegant ambiance continued around us, other families enjoying their meals and celebrations while mine fell apart in spectacular fashion. I didn't look back as I made my way toward the exit, my heels clicking against the polished floor with finality that matched the decision crystallizing in my heart. The cool Chicago evening air hit my face as I stepped out of Alinea, and for the first time in hours, I could breathe freely. The city lights twinkled around me like fallen stars, and the bustling street noise felt more welcoming than the oppressive silence that had fallen over our dinner table. I walked slowly down North Halsted Street, my expensive heels clicking against the sidewalk as I processed everything that had just happened. The woman who had entered that restaurant full of hope and excitement was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood her place in her family's hierarchy. My phone buzzed constantly with calls and texts from my parents and Jessica, but I let them go straight to voicemail. There was nothing left to say. No magical combination of words that could undo the hurt they'd inflicted or repair the trust they'd shattered. 28 years of accumulated pain had finally reached its breaking point, and I felt strangely calm in the aftermath of the explosion. The worst had happened, and I was still standing, still breathing, still moving forward on my own 2 feet. I hailed a taxi instead of calling an Uber, wanting the anonymity of a stranger's car rather than the rated interaction of a rideshare driver. As we drove through the city streets toward my apartment, I watched Chicago's nightlife unfold through the window. Couples walking hand in hand, friends laughing outside bars, families heading home from late dinners. Life was continuing all around me, indifferent to my personal drama, and that realization felt oddly comforting rather than isolating. Back in my apartment, I kicked off my expensive heels and let my feet sink into the soft carpet I'd chosen when I'd moved in 6 months ago. This space was mine, filled with furniture I'd selected, art I'd purchased, books I'd chosen to read. Every item reflected my taste, my decisions, my hard work, and independence. For the first time in my adult life, I truly appreciated what I'd built for myself without any help or validation from my family. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my couch, finally allowing myself to fully process what had happened. The hurt was still there, sharp and immediate, but it was accompanied by something unexpected. Relief. The pretense was over. I no longer had to wonder where I stood in my family's affections or hope that things might change. The truth had been laid bare in the most brutal way possible, but at least now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. My phone continued to buzz with messages, but I finally turned it off completely. Tomorrow would bring conversations and consequences, but tonight belonged to me. I changed into comfortable pajamas, washed off my makeup, and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me had been through hell, but her eyes held a clarity that hadn't been there before. She knew who she was now, independent of family expectations or desperate attempts to earn love that would never be freely given. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by my window, looking out at the city that had become my home. Somewhere out there, my family was probably still at the restaurant, trying to figure out how to salvage the evening and make sense of my overreaction. They might be planning how to apologize or strategizing about how to get me to come around. But for the first time in my life, their opinions and plans didn't matter to me. The expensive birthday dinner had cost me more than money. It had cost me the illusion that my family would ever truly see or value me. But in losing that illusion, I'd gained something more valuable, the freedom to stop trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it equally. I was 28 years old, successful, independent, and finally ready to build a life based on relationships that were reciprocal and genuine. As I prepared for bed, I felt a strange sense of anticipation about what tomorrow might bring. For the first time in years, I wasn't planning my life around family expectations or trying to prove my worth to people who had already decided I wasn't worth their full attention. The future stretched out before me, blank and full of possibilities that had nothing to do with competing for scraps of affection from people who should have loved me unconditionally. I fell asleep that night with tears still drying on my cheeks, but they weren't just tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of freedom, of finally letting go of a dream that had been slowly killing me for 28 years. Tomorrow would begin the rest of my life, a life where I was enough, exactly as I was, without needing anyone's permission or validation to believe it. The birthday dinner had ended in disaster, but somehow, it had also given me the greatest gift of all, the truth about who I really was and what I truly deserved.